Hi, my name is Tom Cottingham. Thank you for joining us. Today I have the great pleasure of speaking with Dr. Brian Korgel from the University of Texas at Austin. And we're here to talk about an amazing opportunity that he's been central in creating with the National Science Foundation. And we'd like to have him talk to us about the process and the award itself, the coalition he's put together, a cohort of all kinds of universities and nonprofit and for-profit entities, and the emphasis is on clean energy, as I understand it. So, Brian, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
First, I like how your profile says professor, but your title is much bigger than that. So give us your entire portfolio here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm the Rashid Regents Engineering Chair or Chair Professor in Engineering. So I'm a professor in the McKetta Department of Chemical Engineering at University of Texas at Austin. Started here in 1998, so been here about 25 years. But yeah, my title is pretty long because I wear a few different hats. So I direct the Energy Institute at UT. I'm the director of another NSF program, National Science Foundation Industry University Cooperative Research Center, called the Center for a Solar Powered Future, SPF 2050. So I've been doing that for 13 years or so. I direct a nanotechnologies area as part of the UT Portugal program. I'm associate editor of Chemistry and Materials Journal. So anyway, I do a variety of things. Yeah.
Right. And it seems like you've been spending a lot of time just building relationships and working on putting this NSF thing together. So tell us a little bit about the program, the award, which is the development award, and how you put this whole thing together.
Yeah, so we were fortunate to win a development award for a regional innovation engine from the National Science Foundation. I think they may have I forget how many they awarded, 45 or 50, something like that, sprinkled around the country. So those are $1 million 2-year grants to plan for a larger proposal for an actual regional innovation engine, which are 10-year, $160 million grants to try to help catalyze, the formation of a what they're calling an innovation engine in a specific region in the United States. So something like trying to create Region X and becomes like a new Silicon Valley or something like that. So this is a project that I started working on when I took over as Energy Institute director at UT, which is about 2 years ago. I started in that role, and one of the first projects that we started working on was a project to create something called the Permian Energy Development Lab, which we call PEDL, PEDL. And
so for those who don't know, that's the Permian Basin, West Texas, New Mexico area, Midland, Odessa.
Right. So it spans West Texas into New Mexico. It's a very special region for the United States. So it's one of the reasons Texas is the largest oil and gas producer in the nation. Texas also produces more wind than any other state. We're second in solar now, I think, to California. So it's a very special energy region. A lot of people think of it immediately as oil and gas producing, but it has a tremendous amount of renewable power generation as well. And for those of you who don't know, how our power grids are set up, there are a few different power grids in the United States, and Texas has its own power grid, called ERCOT. So all of these make kind of Texas, West Texas, Permian Basin, into New Mexico, a very special region for energy. And I think
that's what. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I think that's what the NSF's trying to do. And you talked about the 45 different grants is find areas that have a natural ecosystem, right? Like the Permian Basin, and say, what can we do to amp up the volume more or less, right? And to
Yeah.
really create a more dynamic, more inclusive, and cleaner in your case, ecosystem for energy. And in different parts of the country, it's going to be different things. And I think that's one of the really smart things the NSF has done. They don't want the Permian Basin to be all things to all people in terms of entrepreneurship, right? They don't want you making aircraft engines. That's not your thing. Focus on energy, which is huge in and of itself. And as you said, covers everything from, natural gas and oil to solar and wind and who knows what else. And upgrading the grid. And that's a really exciting opportunity. And you've got a ton of players involved, right?
Yeah. So we've got the kind of leadership team. We created a memorandum of understanding to create this advanced energy lab. So it's University of Texas at Austin, UT Permian Basin. We've got Midland College and Odessa College, which are our four-year colleges. On the New Mexico side, we have New Mexico Tech, New Mexico State. We also have University of Texas El Paso, and then two major national labs focused on energy. So National Renewable Energy Lab in Golden, Colorado, and Sandia National Lab in New Mexico. So we're really kind of the academic, intellectual leadership of this thing. The interesting thing about the program, NSF is looking for impact in their research. So it kind of starts with what they call use-inspired research, thinking about innovation, but also how does that innovation lead to new technologies, new business opportunities, entrepreneurial activity, startup companies, and all of that. And so, when NSF, so we have 2 years to put together a compelling program proposal to create an engine that's funded by the National Science Foundation in our region. What NSF tends to talk about is the regional advantage. And like you said, thinking about, okay, what positions your region in that particular area. So the innovation engines can fund any particular topical area. They don't have to be on energy. They can be semiconductors. They can be whatever. But when we think about the Permian Basin in terms of the skill set, the mindset of people in the communities, energy is a big deal. It's an important part of the economy. But I don't think people think about the Permian Basin in the same way as the Bay Area in terms of startup companies coming out of there. And there's a lot of innovation, but it's the economy, it's kind of an extractive economy. You have oil and gas, and people are there to extract the oil and gas, and so that all of that has impacts on the economy, how it functions, the cycles of boom and bust cycles that are very much tied to the price of oil, for example. So how do you diversify the economy while taking advantage of the assets that are there? That's the one of the big things that we've been thinking about. And so in a place like the Permian Basin, how do we create innovation accelerators? How do we bring entrepreneurs and more venture capital to the region and that sort of thing?
Yeah, there's a lot of different pieces you got to put together on that, right? So let's talk. I mean, you're coming from originally the academic engineering side, and what are some of or are there solutions that you guys are already looking at and working on that you want to be able to expand or further develop to achieve more of this clean energy goal and building of the ecosystem?
Yeah, well, right now in terms of energy, it's an amazing time period because what's happening is there are so many new energy technology solutions sort of bubbling up and on the horizon that that solve some current challenges in the energy industry, but create a lot of opportunities for economic growth. And they tend to do two things. One, the world needs more energy. I mean, the energy use is ramping up, and then the other challenge is reducing emissions just overall in the energy sector, right? So those two challenges. Most of the new technologies people are talking about are routes to reduce emissions while producing more energy. So, so for example, people in our region are talking a lot about geothermal energy. So, can you find geothermal resources in the Permian Basin in West Texas? We normally, I mean, most people think of geothermal, you need hot lava or something like that, and you think about Iceland and
Right.
volcanoes, right? Well, it turns out that you don't necessarily need that to produce geothermal power. There are, as you go down into the earth, it naturally gets hotter. Doesn't
Well,
matter where
sure.
you
Yeah,
are,
you've got that
it gets
molten
hotter, right?
core. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question is just, that amount of additional heat as you go into the Earth's core can vary depending on where you are, but you don't have to be near volcanoes to have enough thermal energy to produce useful energy.
How
And
far down do
so,
you have to go?
oh wow. So I'm not an expert on geothermal, but in a typical kind of drilling situation where you're drilling for oil, you're deep enough to get
Get the
hot
thermal?
stuff out. Yeah, in
Huh.
fact, I mean, there's sometimes challenges where the oil coming out is too hot and
Wow.
things like that. So it's there are things like still trying to map the profiles of how hot it is, where what are the opportunities. So geothermal is an example. One way to decarbonize energy production or reduce emissions is to capture carbon. So do carbon capture. So for example, if I have a natural gas fired power plant, I can capture the carbon coming out of the stack or what have
Sure.
you. And then once I capture that carbon,
Sequester it.
that CO2, yeah, I need to put it somewhere, do something with it. So there are opportunities once you capture the carbon to take the CO2 and use it as, say, a chemical feedstock to make
Right.
plastics or
Put
something
it
like that.
or put it in a greenhouse.
Yeah, or greenhouse. I mean, there's all kind. So right now there are these opportunities as you're capturing CO2. Like, what do you do with it? Can you convert it to other useful chemicals, things like that? So those are opportunities. You could capture the CO2, say you capture it in the Permian Basin, and you can put it in a pipeline and send it to Houston or something, and they can do things. But it presents an opportunity that maybe it's more cost effective to actually make something useful where you're capturing the CO2, for example.
Right.
Also, you have to, as you said, sequester it or store it somewhere, so you can do that underground. So you can do CO2 storage, geological CO2 storage. So there's a lot of research being done now about what are the challenges to doing that in the Permian Basin region versus say on the Gulf Coast. There are different geologies that are better or not for CO2 storage. So what are the opportunities for that in the Permian Basin? And there are startup companies doing these things. There are startup companies doing geothermal, startup companies looking at carbon capture, carbon storage, all of that. Hydrogen is a big topic people are talking about. So hydrogen you can take and put into a fuel cell and get electricity back, or you may burn hydrogen, and the combustion product of burning hydrogen
Right.
is water. It's not CO2. So what are the economics behind maybe using hydrogen either as a fuel or to produce electricity? One of the biggest challenges right now with renewable energy, with solar especially, is that there's more sunlight, a lot more sunlight in the summer than the
Yeah.
winter. So solar farms are producing all this extra electricity, which we tend to use for our air conditioning in the summer, which, you know, we'll use a lot of that excess energy. But being able to store any that we don't use on seasonal timescales, which you can't do in batteries. Batteries are
Right.
great for, you know, hourly, maybe daily, but not monthly storage. So
Not
how
for
do you
the
do
grid.
that?
Right.
Yeah, how do you do that? You know, maybe you could use hydrogen for it, different things. We're also thinking a lot about like land use as it applies to renewables. So, for example, can right now, you know, the model for a solar farm is you just kind of you know, put the solar panels there on the land, and you're not using the land really for anything. So how can you make better use of the land? So some of our research that we have planned is focusing on a topic called agrivoltaics. So agri for agriculture. So the idea is, can you like grow crops or something in the same place that you have
All
these
right.
solar panels? So
That
yeah,
makes tons of sense.
yeah, that research area is called agrivoltaics. Can you do things with solar panels and maybe make different sorts of seed mixes for grasses that are more appropriate than what they do right now? It's
Huh.
not particularly thoughtful. So all, you know, lots and lots of big opportunities in terms of energy coming up. And so when we think about the, you know, creating an innovation engine in the Permian Basin, what we're thinking about is how do the people in the Permian Basin, the communities, take advantage of those opportunities,
Right.
as opposed to, you know, innovations happening outside somewhere, companies come in and just use those to extract more energy or something like that.
Well,
You
and
know,
and my understanding of the NSF um, goals is workforce development,
yeah,
retraining, and so you have an opportunity there to say, you know, we need entrepreneurs, we need business people, we need venture capitalists, and you know, to take part of that workforce and transition them to different areas within that same broad ecosystem, right?
yeah,
Where they have some domain expertise, right? Um, so I think so you've got 2 years to lay out a plan, um,
yeah,
and there's a ton of overlapping sort of objectives, right? I mean, workforce development is one of them. Your goals of more clean uh, sources of energy is, or the same sources of energy, and doing something with the emissions. But and then, you know, attracting talent, attracting capital. So what do the next couple of years look like for you guys? What are you going to be doing with the money as you ramp up to get this thing closed? Because it's $70 million of federal money, right?
well, our planning grant's $1 million
No, I
for
mean,
two
if you
years.
win, if you get the
Oh,
final
no,
award,
it's a
140.
$160 million.
Okay,
Yeah, no, it's a significant amount of money.
right,
Uh, you know, it's taking, I mean, it's really building a extensive team. Like, it's a network. I mean, the challenge for us as academics is, you know, we're used to writing proposals for a National Science Foundation to create an academic research center or something like this. This is really a new model for National Science Foundation. I mean, the Chips and Sciences Act was passed, I think, to do a lot of things with money that can support research, but also goes a little more directly towards supporting the economy and manufacturing and all that. And so within the National Science Foundation, they've been thinking about how can the research that they fund translate maybe more quickly, more directly to, say, economic development, workforce development, and that sort of thing. So the challenge for us is really trying to be part, you know, in the end. Right now we're driving the process. I mean, I'm the the principal investigator, the lead person on the grant, and I'm an academic. Most of our partners are academic institutions and national labs. We have the Cynthia and George Mitchell Foundation, which is a philanthropic organization. So what we really need to focus on to get ready for the engine is bringing in the folks from the business sector, the entrepreneurs. I mean, and the venture cap. How do you bring in venture financing? And not every startup needs to be a venture funding, right? I mean,
No, right.
sometimes you don't want it to be venture
Many
funded.
times.
So but it's having the financing to invest startups, to take risks, and then creating the ecosystem where you have the talent pool that maybe is actually attracted to West Texas. So people are coming to the region who are interested in starting up companies and realize, okay, this is where they're going to be implemented. So being in the region gives a big advantage. So creating those partnerships over a pretty large geographical region. I mean, it's a lot of the territory is pretty rural, so kind of sparsely populated. Yeah. So it's geographically large. It's diverse. The communities are diverse, and the different counties. Our region of interest spans into El Paso, so it's Permian Basin, but a little bit more expanded than that. So it goes down to the Texas Mexico border, and a bit of New Mexico border as well. Up to Lubbock, for example, which, depending on who you talk to, some people in Lubbock think they're part of the Permian Basin. Other people think they're not. It depends on who you're talking about. But in terms of the region, it's pretty interconnected, yet very diverse, geographically large. You have rural communities with a few urban centers like El Paso, for example, and that sort of thing. You have different political perspectives. I mean, on the New Mexico side versus the Texas side, there are different approaches to regulations and things like that might present some challenges, but also some opportunities, right? And so taking the different perspectives, making sure we have all of the stakeholders represented in our effort, that's taking some time, for sure. But the people we talk to, everyone we talk to is really excited.
Oh yeah, it's a huge.
I mean, there's no real downside to it, No. I mean, it's and the other thing about the Permian Basin, which is similar to other regions in the United States, okay, if you talk about most any region in the United States has a lot of innovation already going on. It might not be recognized as, it's right, the Silicon Valley or something like that, or Boston or what have you, but there's a lot of innovation already. So I think and that's true in the Permian Basin. There are many entrepreneurs. I mean, George Mitchell himself, was an entrepreneur, certainly, and helped revolutionize our oil and gas extraction, and that sort of thing, right? That came out of the kind of West Texas area. Right. So those are the strengths, trying to leverage all those strengths with this momentum and the funds that can catalyze the economic opportunities. But in that region, there are challenges with people dropping out of high school because they can get a high-paying job driving a truck or something, right? So and in the short term, that's great. If you can make a bunch of money and right away, then
and not
fantastic.
Have a student loan, and I mean,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. But in the long term, it's okay. So say things change, you go through a boom and bust cycle. How do you create an educational network and system that then can support everyone during the downturns and that sort of thing? So those are things that we think about quite a bit, and relate to education, workforce, all of that.
You've got I don't know where you find the time, man. I think you've got a lot of stuff to do. And so we have an audience that is a mixture, of venture capitalists and entrepreneurs and people in the ecosystem. Um, obviously, you're looking for talent and you're trying to build these coalitions. But we're going to link to your LinkedIn profile, and I'll encourage anybody in our audience that's interested in what you guys are doing down in Texas to reach out to you, because it is a huge opportunity and it's a big challenge, and you've got a lot going for you down there in Texas. So I think that your odds of success would be really, really high, and you clearly know what you're doing. So,
thanks.
Any final words?
Well, I mean, I'll say one other thing that's exciting, I think, about this regional innovation engine is how, we're in Austin trying to help make this happen. Sandia's in Albuquerque. You've got National Renewable Energy Lab that's Golden, Colorado. You have all of these different perspectives of how innovation's done and different regional perspectives, and just trying to bring all of these best practices to a region that already has its own sort of best practices. And I just think it's really exciting to think about the potential for that. So yeah, I think it's not only about West Texas, Eastern New Mexico, the Permian Basin region, it's also about the supporting regions kind of around it, all focused on this area. And, and I haven't said anything really about the national importance of the energy that is produced in the Permian Basin. The United States not too long ago went from a net energy importer to a net energy exporter. And this happened. I don't think any people in my generation probably thought the United States would ever be a net energy exporter.
Right. I mean, no, it was huge though, right?
And that came about because of technology innovation. And and it has a lot of impact in terms of energy security, global security, the position of the United States. And so I think even going beyond the Permian Basin itself is the importance of the region and energy in the region to the United States as well. So that's another thing is kind of exciting, and we feel that.
You guys can also show the way to the other energy producing areas in North America, right?
Yeah.
And that's huge too, because the world is not going to diminish its need for energy anytime soon.
Right. So. Yeah. And I think, and I think that's exactly right. You have different large energy producing regions. I mean, California produces a lot of energy. So
Pennsylvania, Ohio,
and you have different policy approaches, very different in the states. And I think that's another thing is the way Texas approaches energy policy is very different from other regions. And so thinking about what are some creative policy incentives that can lead to new innovations more rapidly or more effectively, and then spanning into New Mexico, which has its own sort of policy things. I mean, one big difference between the New Mexico side of the Permian Basin and the Texas side is there's a lot of federal land in New Mexico, which is not so true in Texas. And so, I mean, it's a fascinating model for economic development and innovation that hopefully will be successful.
The innovation on the policy side is a really interesting thing. And you do have this opportunity to say, okay, we've got 3 different experiments going on here, right, in terms of approach and policy. Which one's working? And, what can we take from each state and create a policy framework that that accomplishes all the goals, right? All the important ones, that's clean, but also makes economic sense, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, cool stuff, man. And we'll stay in touch with you. Touch bases again in a few months and see how things are going, and see if you have any new news for us. But I'm very optimistic. You're obviously going to be a crazy busy guy.
Yeah.
But it's a righteous mission. So I wish you great success.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for taking the time, man. It's been great getting to know you.
Yeah. No, really enjoyed it. Thanks for the questions. Great talking to you.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, thank you for listening, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks.